I'm going to get started, and this session is all about what do I do now? You know, we are hopefully feeling a little bit better because we've watched some of the other sessions. We've been thinking about grief work. We've been thinking about how important self-care is to our sense of self-worth. And obviously you're going to be doing other stuff before the We Are Worthy Summit as well. And you're going to be thinking, I've got all of this new information. Where does it fit into other stuff? What do I do now? What's my next step? Well, in this session, I'm going to be taking you through some very practical and logical techniques that you can use to find your personal raison d'etre, your purpose in life. And I know that other people have been talking about this before. However, I've got a slightly different sort of slant on this, and I will explain more about that later. Just to tell you a little tiny bit about, a little bit about who I am and my story, our story as well, because Andrew is very much part of that story. My name's Nicci Fletcher. Been married to Andrew. Oh, it's actually our wedding anniversary on Monday. We got married in 2005, so it's going to be our 13th wedding anniversary. Most definitely lucky for us. And after 13 years, we are still in the honeymoon period. And newlyweds, which is absolutely brilliant. When we first got together, I fell pregnant due to a split condom incident, and we'd only really just got used to the idea of me being pregnant and the fact that, okay, it's a little tiny bit early, however, we're going to do this, when I had a miscarriage. And that unfortunately sort of lulled us into a false sense of security, if you like. We believed that my eggs only had to smell sperm and I would get pregnant. So we decided to wait a bit. We waited until after we got married, and we started immediately after then to try for a baby, and nothing happened. We had some tests done. It came back as unexplained infertility. Basically, go away, enjoy practicing, and see what happens. And again, nothing happened for quite a few years. And then on my 40th birthday, so just over 10 years ago, I woke up in screaming agony with a pain in my left ovary. And that turned out to be caused by endometriosis. I had a very vigorous, aggressive form of endometriosis, and I had multiple surgeries. We had one cycle of IVF, which failed. And we were just sort of left at that point. We didn't know what to do. So we had to try and work out what to do. And the trouble is that when you are in the middle of your grief, you feel chained by it. You don't know what on earth you're doing. You feel that you're the only person in the world who's experiencing this sometimes. And everything is sort of conspiring against you. You're in this pit of despair and you don't know how to get out of it. And you do feel so alone. And one of the great things about things like the World Childless Week last year and this summit is it helps to build a sense of community, a sense of the fact that we do belong, that we have got peer support, other people know how we feel, and they might be able to help us in some way work out what to do next and how to grieve. People to sort of basically signpost us. But for a lot of us, when we are really in the depths of our grief, our despair, and we don't know what to do, we are merely existing. We get up because we have to get up. We eat because we have to eat. We sleep because we have to sleep. And we go to work and we do all of the other bits and pieces because that's what we are expected to do. And we are programmed to do these things just as the caterpillar is programmed to eat. And it eats and eats and eats because that is what it's expected to do. And you get to the stage where you think something has got to change, but you don't quite know what. And you're screaming inside because you have got no idea what to do. And at that point, hopefully, you will get some guidance. Somebody in a support group will say, oh, I tried this, why don't you give it a go, etc. So you'll get a bit of guidance about what to do next, because you know something's got to change, and you realise that actually you've been bottling up your emotions and you have got to do something about it, and that is grieving. And quite often that grieving is done behind closed doors. So just like the caterpillar who weaves itself, makes itself a cocoon, which is a safe place where they can be protected, we sometimes go into ourselves and we protect ourselves as we are going through that very difficult phase of grieving. And just like the caterpillar, whilst we go through those phases, we're going to start changing. We're going to emerge eventually as a butterfly, because we've gone through the pain and we've eventually found some way of coming out on the other side. But when we do that, when we've sort of emerged and we've said, okay, I'm getting there now, it's not totally okay, I'm not totally healed, however things are getting better. We often face challenges because we go, life is getting better, but what do I do now? And that's what I want to talk about today, the what do I do now. Now this may surprise you, because in my opinion at that point you need to find a camel. Yeah, I did say a camel, and I actually meant a camel. And in fact, you don't need one camel, you need 18 camels. And if anybody's interested, I had a huge amount of fun searching for all of these brilliant photographs of camels. And you're probably scratching your head and going, Nicci, I'm sorry, you've done too many of these things. You're absolutely exhausted from doing the summit. You've lost the plot totally. And yeah, I could have done, but there is method in my madness, because you need 17 camels, but more importantly, you need your 18th camel to help you to make sense of the really strange, difficult situation that you are in. Because you've probably got no points of reference, etc., to help you personally move forward. People can give you advice and make suggestions, but what's right for them may not be right for you. So my practical tools are going to help you work out what's right for you as you start to move forward. But what's that got to do with camels? Nicci, you really have lost the plot. So let me explain. Once upon a time, there was a wealthy man, and this man had 3 sons. Now, the man was getting towards the end of his life, and he knew that he had to specify his final wishes, how he was going to share out his wealth, in particular his 17 camels. He decided that he was going to leave his eldest son half of the camels, because it was his eldest son, and he felt that this was appropriate. He then decided he was going to leave the middle son 1/3 of the camels, and then finally the youngest son was going to get 1/9 of the camels. And he was happy with his decision. Don't ask me how he came up with those figures, I've got no idea. However, he was happy with those that distribution of his wealth, and that's all that counts. And eventually the old man died. And his eldest son said, this is really a bit difficult, because there are 17 camels and you can't divide 17 in half. So I'm the eldest son and I'm going to take charge. I'm going to basically decide what happens to these camels and how I'm going to distribute our father's wealth. And I'm doing this because I think this is a proper way of acknowledging that I was the firstborn son. Well, the middle son didn't like this idea at all. His attitude was, I'm always considered last. You know, it's either my eldest brother, the eldest, or the youngest who took priority, and never me. This is not fair. I should be the one to take all of the camels to make up for this. Now, the youngest son didn't like this at all, because he always got everything last. He was the last to be considered. All of his toys, all of his clothes, all of his books, etc., had been hand-me-downs from his elder brothers. And he was fed up with this. So he decided that he should get all of the camels first. After all, it was about time that that happened. Now, as you can imagine, this caused a lot of bitterness and anger between the three brothers, and they couldn't decide who was going to have all the camels, or if they didn't have all the camels, how they were going to divide the camels up more fairly, because you cannot divide 17 camels in half. If you do, there's certainly one camel who's going to suffer for it, isn't there? Eventually, they had to go and talk to a local wise man to ask his opinion, ask his advice. And the old man sort of listened to what was happening, listened to all of their frustrations, their anger, their points of view. And he sat and pondered for a while, and he said, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you one of my camels. You can have that camel for as long as you need. Once you can return those camel, or return that camel to me, without reducing the number of camels that you inherited from your father, you will do so. But up until that point, my camel is now your camel. And with that, he told a servant to go and get one of his camels, and the camel was brought to him and put into the enclosure with the other camels. The wise man then asked the eldest son to approach, and he said, how many camels are you entitled to? And the eldest son said, well, I can't take my camels because there are 17 camels. I'm entitled to half of them, and 2 into 17 doesn't go. And the wise man said, but there aren't 17 camels, there are 18 camels. And the oldest son went, oh, of course there are. Okay, if I'm entitled to half of them, then I'm entitled to 9 camels. And the wise man said, go away and pick your 19 camels, move them to 9 camels, I apologise, 9 camels. And the eldest son went and picked up chose his 9 camels. The wise man then asked the middle son to approach. And the middle son had heard the conversation, so when he was asked, how many camels are you entitled to, he knew the answer, because you can divide 18 camels by 3. So he went off and he picked his 6 camels. And then the youngest son came forward, and he went and eventually chose his 2 camels. At the end of this, the brothers all came and thanked the wise man, and the wise man said, yeah, wait one moment. There's 1 camel left in the enclosure. If I take that camel, none of you will have reduced the number of camels you inherited from your father, so I'm going to reclaim my camel again. And he did that, and all of the brothers were happy. They had got the solution that they needed. Their father's will had been executed, if you like, according to his wishes. And we had been able to find, or the wise man had been able to find, this creative solution by using an 18th camel. So what's this got to do with what I'm about to teach you now? Well, I'm an incredibly creative person. I love writing. I'm not good at painting, but I love anything to do with writing and words and creating training courses and dressmaking and cooking and things. So I'm very, very creative. However, I'm also incredibly logical as well. And I think part of that stems from the fact that I used to be a business analyst trainer and an IT trainer. I was a BA trainer for 15 years, and I love the structure that it gives me. because I do have this logical side, and the techniques, the tools that you use as a business analyst really play to that side and play to those strengths that I've got. So what I'm going to be doing now is going through some of these tools and techniques that I have personally used in my journey to find my raison d'etre. And I say my, I do actually mean our, because Andrew has been part of this journey as well and part of the decision-making process. And as I go through, I hope that I will be able to sort of illustrate some of the things I did when we were going through this personally. So one of these technical things then I'm going to be teaching you, and don't worry, they are not too technical. They really aren't. Some of them are so simple. Well, the first thing I'm going to teach you is about most. I will explain all of these individually as I go through, but I just want to cover the main topics we're going to be going through. So we've got most, we've got something called SWOT, which some of you may have come up across before. We have stakeholder analysis, gap analysis, risk analysis, de Bono's 6 hats, the 6 honest serving men, and then a little tiny bit about negotiation. Now, don't panic, it seems an awful lot there. However, I do want to reassure you that these things are not that complicated. So much of this is just common sense, and then thinking about how can I apply this to my situation. And remember, the whole point of this is you saying, I'm getting to the stage where I want to really start thriving. I need to pick something which will help me to thrive rather than just survive. And these are the tools and techniques that you can use to decide whether you want to go for Plan B version 1, Plan B version 2, or Plan B version 3. And remember that if it doesn't work out, you can go back and do it all again and choose another version as well. And that's something that Andrew and I have done. The magazine and the summit is our 5th Plan B. So most then. What is most? Well, the M stands for mission, and this is your high level aim. What do you want to achieve? It could just be something, I don't want to use that word just, it could be something as simple as being more happy, more comfortable in your skin. It doesn't have to be a very, very big objective or mission. It doesn't have to be something as big as running a summit. It can be something very small, but it's your very high level mission, just in a couple of words, what it is that you want to do. The next one is drilling down that into a little tiny bit more detail, and this is where you start thinking about your objectives, and it's drilling down into your aim in a way which is much more measurable. So I mentioned an aim of, or a mission rather, of being happier. Well, happiness is quite an intangible thing to measure. So we need to find some way of measuring it properly. Does it mean that you're going to be laughing more? Does it mean you're going to be smiling more? Does it mean that you are feeling more happy in your situation, so you are able to go out more frequently and socialize with people? Just find some way of measuring it if you can. And don't worry if you can't do it, because sometimes it is a bit difficult on these things. I'm talking in general situations here. It's very difficult because so many situations will be different. So many people's options will be different. The next thing is to think about your strategy. And your strategy is the sort of high-level theoretical approach. Now, I mentioned that perhaps if you were wanting to be more happy and your objectives was to go out more frequently to socialize with people, then your high-level theoretical approach would be to accept more invitations. It's that simple. It's that high level. And then we get our tactics, which is the more specific tasks. Because you might not simply want to accept more invitations. You might want to invite more people to be with you, come and socialise with you. So that's how you sort of deal with most, and you write it from the top downwards. So you start with mission, then go to objectives, then go to strategy, then go to tactics, drilling down all the time. And then if there's enough of a link between each of those as you created them, when you're actually working, you do it from the bottom up. So if you look at your tactics and you say, right, on this particular day, I'm going to do X, and you do X, that means that your strategy is starting to work. And as you work on your strategies, you are achieving your objectives. And as you meet more of your objectives, you are achieving your mission. So that was the first one. And do remember, on all of these, you don't have to use all of them. If it doesn't make sense, and if it's not working for you, bin it. It doesn't matter. These are just some tools that you can use if you think they are going to help. Next one then is SWOT. Now, you might have come across this one before. This is your strengths. So what skills do I have that will help me? Let's try and think of a scenario. Let's say that you have decided that you're an artist and you want to create some perhaps greetings cards which are suitable for people to send to other people who are childless not by choice. So your strengths there would be the fact that you can draw and paint. Your weaknesses are any things where you need to improve your skill. So, going back to that idea of being an artist, creating a range of greetings cards, you may be a very great artist, you're a good artist, but your weaknesses are that you don't have the marketing skills. So you've identified those. You've then got some opportunities as well. Who could I I can't speak. Who can I collaborate with? So you've identified a weakness, that you are not a great marketing person. Well, you happen to know somebody who is. Go and talk to them, see if you can collaborate with them. And then the final one is your threats. And this is anything that could jeopardize your success. So you happen to know that somebody else is doing something similar to you. Now we're going to go on to Moscow analysis. And Moscow analysis is so great. And the way you use this is perhaps you've got a number of different options. And let's face it, that's what we're talking about. You've got Plan B version 1, Plan B version 2, Plan B version 3. And you're going through all of the different Plan Bs and then trying to work out what is the best thing for you to do next. And Moscow analysis is so simple because you literally go through and you say, what must I do? And in this situation, it's going to be I know that doing this particular thing will make me happy. I know that by spending time designing and creating my cards will make me happy. So whatever I choose to do, I want to do something which involves art. And you go through all of your different options. You say, it must include art, or it must include writing. And then you think about the shoulds, the S's. What should I do? Well, perhaps that's the fact that you realise that by helping other people that you are helping yourselves. So I want to find something that I really enjoy because that's very important to me, that's my must. And also it should be something which helps somebody else as well, because I know that will benefit me. And then you've got some coulds. I could do that if I had the time, if I had the money, if I had the energy. Those sorts of things. And then finally, the W of Moscow is the won't. I won't do that. And that could be because you've decided that actually it really doesn't interest you that much. You thought it did, or it could be that you've realised that there are too many things that you need to learn about before you could do it, so it doesn't make it practical. And incidentally, you can use Moscow for absolutely anything. If you've decided that you want to write some articles, start a blog, that's what your Plan B is going to be. You can use Moscow to work out the content of your blog articles. It's very, very flexible. Now we're going to go on to stakeholder analysis. Now, this is it's actually a really interesting exercise to do. However, it can be a challenge because stakeholders are basically all of the people who might be affected by any choices that you make. And we know that being in our situation can be so difficult in terms of relationships. So who are these stakeholders then? They're the people who could be affected. So this might be your partner. It could be close family, close friends. That's sort of a wider circle of family and friends as well. Work colleagues, might be your bank manager. Can you afford to do this? And what you do is you put down on a piece of paper the name of absolutely anybody who could be affected by the choices that you're going to be making. It could be that you want to change your job. So one of the stakeholders here would be your current employer. And then once you've done that, you put everything onto a diagram with you in the center. And this diagram plots things like your current relationships and the influences that those relationships have on you. Any sort of deceased influences. So in my case, although my parents and my stepfather have all passed away, I actually feel influenced by them still because, I occasionally get caught up with the, would my mum really approve of me doing that or something? Or on a positive thing, it would be, oh, they would be so pleased I'm doing this. So even people who you have been close to, who have passed away, can be an influencer as well in this situation. There are the non-blood relationships, so you've got friends as opposed to family. Perhaps you've got your fur kids. How are they going to be impacted by what you do? You've then got things like organisations, places, things. I didn't put this on the slide, and I realise I should have done now, is our tribe. That could be plotted on here as well, because that is very important to us. And then you've got sort of allies and opponents to what your plans are. They can be plotted on here. You can also show any relationships which aren't great at the moment and that you've highlighted as perhaps needing to improve. Now, I'm going to show you one of these diagrams. It's a fairly simple diagram, but I want you to talk to you about the symbols first of all. So we've got the symbol for a man, symbol for a woman, a ghost. Now, I've just made this up. I've got the whether it's a man or a woman and a circle around it to distinguish it between somebody who is currently alive and somebody who isn't. So these are the deceased influences. The double line indicates a very strong relationship. So in my instance, it is my relationship with Andrew. And then we've got other relationships which are strong but not quite as strong. So this would be with my sister, perhaps. You've got a problematic relationship where it's sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not. And then you've got the dotted line for your very poor relationships, the ones which are under serious strain. We've then got a little symbol for a place, an organisation, and in my example I've used this symbol for the CNBC community. And then you've got typing, so I've got M there for miscellaneous, but you could actually just type in a word. So let's have a look at the diagram that I drew when I was thinking about the magazine, launching the magazine. So you start off with a circle, which is like basically your world. It's containing all of your idea. And you plot yourself in the middle. So there I am, Nicci with an N. And then you start plotting the other relationships. So the first one for me was to plot my relationship with Andrew. And you can see that that's got the double line for being a very strong relationship. I then plotted some other relationships as well. Oh, actually, I put the tribe in. I was thinking that was going to appear later, but perhaps it's actually quite important that it came in earlier than that, because of very strongly associating with the CNBC tribe, and also it's where we get an awful lot of our support as well, and where a lot of our friendships now are contained, if you like. And then we were, I was focusing here on this one about whether or not to start the magazine and who would be impacted by what we were doing. This relationship is a strong relationship, and this was actually Andrew's parents, Ron and Jean. We've got my relationship with my sister as well, and that's a strong relationship. We've got the influences of my father, my mother, and my stepfather. And then we've got my brother and my half-brother. Now, you notice that the one for my brother down here is a problematic relationship. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, which is why it's got the break across it. And it's got B for brother as opposed to HB for half-brother. And this is a very problematic relationship. It is basically broken. What's interesting is actually these two brothers are both half-brothers, but because I have a slightly better relationship with this one, he's called a brother, and that's happened for years. Some people didn't even realise I've got another brother at our wedding. And sometimes it's only doing an exercise like this that you actually see it there in black and white, and you go, actually, that's really weird. And is it significant? And do I need to address this? Is it important to me? Do I really care that this half brother here, I've got a much worse relationship than I do with this brother instead? And that's one of the benefits of doing this sort of work and drawing these sorts of diagrams, because it can help you to identify any potential problem areas. And it's a bit difficult because of the amount of space I've got on this, but the idea is that the closer the relationship, the closer they are to you in the centre. So you can see that this brother here, the half brother, is a tiny bit further away from me than the other half brother, and certainly a lot further away from my sister, who I've got a good relationship with. So once you have sort of worked out who your stakeholders are, and drawing it on a diagram like that can be so useful to make sure that you've captured everybody, you can start thinking about how important those stakeholders are to you, how important the people around you are in relation to this particular exercise you're doing. Creating my plan B, and actually not just creating, but actually taking that first step to implement your plan B. Now, this grid here, there are a couple of grids which are very simple. We've got our similar rather. We've got our four quadrants. We have an axis here along the side, and then one down at the bottom. Quite often it's low down in the corner and high up at the other ends, and then you've got what that symbolises along the edge. So this one, in terms of your stakeholders, is talking about the power or influence that somebody has over you. And down at the bottom, you've got how interested they are in what you are doing. And you start to plot them. And what you do is, I've got the text here rather than people's names here, but you would put people's names in here. So if you identify anybody who's got a very high influence over you but lack of interest, you would put them in this area. And example there, I would say, would be my sister. She does influence a lot of what I do. We've got a good relationship. She's very proud of what I'm doing, but she's not that interested in what I'm doing. So I would put her name here if I was doing this in reality. And that square there, you're thinking about assessing their reactions carefully and then deciding whether or not it actually matters. So, you know, I told my sister that we were launching the magazine. She was, oh, yeah, well, that's quite interesting, but she wasn't really that bothered. I've sent her a couple of articles and radio interviews, etc. And she's been pleased for me, but she's not that bothered. And I now accept that that's the way she is. You know, she's supportive, but not proactively supportive. And that is fine. So that's when I thought, you know, does this really matter to me? I've gone, no, it doesn't. You know, I'm happy that she's happy for me, and I can accept that she's not really that interested. And then you go on to the next one, which is the high power or influence and the high interest. And these are the people that you need to consider very carefully and monitor their reactions very closely as well, because those are the people that because of their interest and power of influence over you, they are the people who could there could be a problem with them if they're not happy about what you're doing. So who would this be? Well, actually, I suppose it would be Andrew. You know, he's on side, but it might be that he wasn't. And then you go on to the other ones. So we've got low power or influence and low interest. Well, you monitor it just in case there are changes, because they might not be bothered that much now, but that could be changing in the future. And then the final one is the people who don't have much influence over you and have got a lot of interest in what you're doing. Keep them informed, because you never know, they could become great allies of yours in the future. And I've got a girlfriend like that. So she doesn't have an awful lot of influence over me, but she's very interested in what I'm doing. And that is brilliant, because I know that she shares things for me on Facebook and Twitter, etc., which is brilliant. So gap analysis then. I am here now. This is where I am. Somewhere over there is where I want to be in the future, when I'm happy, when I'm successful, when I've achieved my plan B. And you are now standing, imagining where you are in the future, and you're looking back to where you were before, and you're thinking, how did I get here from over there? And then you start asking yourself, what was the very last step I took? And when you've worked out that one, you then think, what was the step I took before that? And the reason why this works is that when you are, you're in place A at the moment, you want to go to place B or plan B, but you don't know how to get there. Imagine you're driving in a car and you have to continually stop for directions because you don't know where you're going. And eventually you get to the second place, place B. And then you turn around and you have to drive back to place A where you started. And it's so much easier, isn't it? Because you've already done part of the journey. It might be in reverse, but things are familiar. And also, the closer you get to your starting point, it's much easier for you to know exactly how to get there, because we know our immediate location a lot better. And that's why gap analysis of sort of thinking about where you want to be in the future and then working backwards really helps. So you think, right, okay, I want to launch a range of greeting cards. What's the previous step I needed to have taken? And then you say, what's the previous thing I needed to have taken before that? And then eventually you have your roadmap of what you need to do in the right direction. Risk analysis. You know, how risky is it going to be to do this? Let's use the magazine as an example for this one, because we did this for the magazine. And on this occasion, for this particular diagram, our lows and our high are probability of the risk happening and impact if it does. And again, we've got our sort of areas of where the two join. So high probability, low impact. What you basically do there is you focus on reducing the probability of it happening. So in our instance, it would be, oh, I wonder whether anybody will actually buy the magazine. Well, there's a high probability of that. I suppose actually that's high risk, isn't it? High risk and high impact. Just trying to think of one quickly, because I'm focused on the time, or conscious of the time. I can't think of that one at the moment. The high probability, high impact is, what happens if nobody actually subscribes to the magazine. And what you do in that instance is you try and reduce the probability of it happening and also the impact if it does. So it would be things like, doing a bit more marketing. Reducing the impact would be having another income stream, for instance. The bottom left-hand corner is the low impact, low probability. And to be honest, if it's so low, you just go, well, I might as well do it anyway, because what does it matter if there's a risk assessment attached to it? And then finally, we've got the low probability but the high impact. That one, actually, we did have that one happening. We upgraded to a more secure server for the internet. Which we needed to do. Very low probability of there being a problem with it, because we'd got a very good internet service provider. However, the impact of it happening, if it did happen, would be huge. And of course it did happen, but we couldn't do anything about that because the probability was minute. We didn't even realise that there was a risk, basically. And what you're doing here is you're just having a quick look and thinking, is there anything which is particularly in this area here, sorry, wrong mouse, oops. This area here of very high probability, high risk, where you decide, actually, do you know what, it's too risky for me to do, so I'm not going to do it. This one's a fun one for you. And on previous times I've done this, I've actually had 6 different coloured hats to wear. And this is called De Bono 6 hats. And this is all about, if you like, playing the devil's advocate. You can either do this by having 6 different people helping you, and they all put on one of the different coloured hats, and they solely think about this particular aspect of your idea. Or you can do it yourself. So let's go through these 6 different hats then. The first hat is the white hat. And the white hat is all about the information known or needed. So what else do you need to think about before you can actually make your decision? So thinking about the magazine, white hat, what information do we need? Well, we need to know which of the different flipbook packages we are going to go with. So we need to research the cost, how it works, what are the benefits of that particular piece of software as opposed to another piece of software, those sorts of things. On a slightly smaller scale, you're wanting to write a blog. Are you going to do a WordPress blog, which is on wordpress.com, or are you going to buy a domain name? And what information do you need to know about those 2 different options? The yellow hat is all about optimism and brightness. We're talking about finding our plan B, finding our raison d'etre. So what positive impact is it going to have on our lives, either now or in the future, when this is a success? So this is a happy, smiley, yellow, happy, yellow hat, thinking about the positives of everything. We've then got the black hat, and this is about the caution and the criticism, those risks that we were talking about. What are the risks and what could go wrong? But you need to be careful not to overuse this, because sometimes you can end up with such a long list of risks that you don't step outside your front door. So do use that one with a bit of care. The green hat is creativity, and I do love this one. It's creativity, it's alternatives and other possibilities. So what could you do to improve your plans for your plan B? Perhaps you have decided to write a blog, and you had originally thought, I'm going to use a WordPress.com blog, and then you go, actually, do you know what? I think I'd really like to buy my own domain name because I've got a great name for a blog. So that's one of your alternatives, being creative, stepping outside your comfort zone, perhaps a little tiny bit. The blue one is all about sort of thinking about this whole process as, in itself, the thinking process. Are you doing enough thinking logically through things? Are you being totally honest with yourself when you answer the questions? Have I missed anything else? So it's almost looking inward into the whole process of thinking and making sure that that thinking process is actually working properly. And then finally, we've got our red hat, and this signifies your feelings and your hunches. Now, we're talking about moving forward from a very difficult situation. So there are going to be lots and lots of feelings that you have about that. And the idea of the red hat is that you acknowledge and honour those feelings. However, you sort of put them in the red hat and put them to one side so that you can think unemotionally about everything initially, and then you can add your emotions back in, your hunches back in a little tiny bit later, just to make sure that everything is still sort of within your comfort zone, or not so far out of the comfort zone you're not happy about it. But initially you need to put your emotions to one side and just think very sort of calm and unemotionally about your different options, and then you add in some of the emotions back again. I think I've got two more here. This one is the 6 honest serving men, and this is taken from the first part of the poem by Kipling, which is called 6 honest serving men. And the first verse is, I keep 6 honest serving men, they taught me all I knew, their names are what and why and when, and how and where and who. And using these 6 honest serving men, also known as the 6 W's, is so useful when you are thinking about your different options that you've got. Because basically you are thinking about what, who, where, when, how and why. It's in a different order, that image, than the actual poem, which is why I stumbled slightly. But ask yourself questions using those 6 W's, and the reason for doing that is that they help you to create what's called an open question. It's easy to explain an open question by first of all saying what a closed question is, and basically a closed question is a question that you can only answer with yes or no, or a specific number like how old are you, and you've only got one option basically to answer. So that's a closed question, yes or no answers. An open question is when you can answer all sorts of ways. Rather than saying, is your name Nicci? Yes or no. Your open question would be, what is your name? And basically, by putting the 6 W's into a question, it makes you ask rather these open questions, which is the way of getting into the nitty-gritty of things. And you can use the 6 W's to help you as you decide which of your different variations of Plan B you want to use. So, what are my plans? Who's going to be impacted by what I choose to do? Where can I get the support that I need? Or when should I be doing this? How much is it going to cost? Why is it important to me? And also the what could be what else can I do? Who else can I help? And going down to that next level of what else, who else, where else is also a really useful little exercise to do. And then we're going to talk about negotiation. And this is important because you are going to be making changes in your life which are going to impact other people. And it could be impacting somebody very close to you, like your partner. It could be impacting people slightly further away from you in terms of blood relationships, so parents, siblings, and then sort of even further as you move further and further away in terms of relationships. And it could be that you do need to negotiate slightly. You want to change jobs. However, your partner's not really that happy about you doing that. There's going to be a bit of negotiation. It could be that you need to move, and your brother or sister has been relying on you for some help because you live very closely. You're going to be moving further away, and you need to sort of talk to them about that. And there's going to be probably a little bit of negotiation involved there. And this screen, again, it's got your sort of axes here. We've got concern for the outcome, concern for the relationship. And I missed actually there's not really a high and a low on this one, but it's how concerned are you? So there should be one. So this is the low and this is the high. Sorry, I missed that out here. And I've just noticed, didn't animate it either. But basically in this square here, we've got the people who are very concerned for the outcome, of the discussion, of the negotiation, but they're really not that concerned about the relationship. Example, don't want to offend anybody, but probably Donald Trump. Quite often politicians fall into that one, actually. I think then that was a gross generalisation, so I'm sorry about that. But yeah, so they are people who might be competing with you. And basically they want to win at any cost. They want their solution. You've then got the people who are concerned for the outcome. However, they're also very concerned for the health of your ongoing relationship. So these are probably people that you could collaborate with. And what you're aiming to do there is solve any of the problems that you've got so both parties can win. Down at the bottom here, we've got the people who aren't really bothered about the outcome. They aren't really bothered about the relationship. They are in this of the avoid category because they're avoiding perhaps engaging with you. And they will basically agree to anything that you suggest because they want to avoid an argument. Over on this side, you've got the accommodating people. So they are more concerned about maintaining a healthy relationship with you than they are with the outcome of the discussion. And their real focus there is on building relationships. And then in the middle there, you've got this sort of compromise group of people who, and that's probably where we really want to be if we can't be in the collaborate win-win situation. It's the people who are going, okay, let's sit down and we'll see how we can negotiate this so that, we're happy about stuff, you're happy about stuff, but we've had to perhaps compromise a little tiny bit. So how do you use all of this then? Because there's quite a lot of information in here, although I've done it at such a high level, it's ridiculous. Well, what you do is you perform basically these tasks for your Plan B version 1, your Plan B version 2, your Plan B version 3. And that might not happen all at once because, I said that I would sort of try and explain a bit about what Andrew and I did. The magazine and the summit is Plan B version 5, I think it is. The first thing was me doing more of my freelance training work, so that was 1. And we did these sorts of exercises with that, how to find new clients for me. I then decided to go it alone properly and not do classroom training, but try and do an online business. And I changed that to, rather than doing BA work, it was being a writing mentor. So that was version 2. We then went on to so changing it from being a general writing mentor to being somebody who was focused on helping people turn their family histories into a book to self-publish and share with their family and friends. So that was version 3. We then went back to the idea of me being a BA but doing it over the internet. So that was the idea of the 15-minute entrepreneur, doing bite-sized training for people over the internet. And then the 5th and final version is the magazine and the summits. So we didn't do this all in one go for all 5 of them, because when we started off with the first one, the other ones, weren't on the horizon. But what we did was we sat down and we worked out all of the pros and cons of doing that first business. And we put those into practice, and they didn't quite work. So we went and reconsidered our options based on the results. We then had a change of thought about the direction that we wanted to go in. We used Moscow to help us prioritise our different options, and we came up with our different idea about me doing book mentoring. And then that one didn't quite work out. So we tweaked it again to do the family history side of things. And so you can see that all of this is an evolving process, if you like. And you just keep on rinsing and repeating if anything changes. And even if nothing substantial changes, you may want to do some of these things anyway, just to make sure that you are still happy with everything and it's still fulfilling your objectives and your mission for a happier, healthier, more fulfilled life, or whatever that mission was that you were on. So I suppose the thing is now that you need to go away and think about your 18th camel, because the logical processes I've gone through are my 18th camel. It's the bit which has helped me to go, I've got all of these ideas. How am I going to decide which one is right for me? And I've done this using business analysis skills because that's who I am. But you may well have all sorts of different ways that you can do it. And it's really finding out what's right for you. However, I hope that by listening to this, you've got a few more sort of skills that you can now think about using so that you can assess some of these things, particularly in the terms of how you assess the people who are going to be influenced or impacted by what you are doing as well, because that's a really important thing. So I think that's got to the end now. Just going to stop my share. And I can now see chat. So I don't know if anybody has got any questions at all, because I can answer a few things. Yes. Very selfishly, somebody's very glad that it was option 5 that worked out. Yes, so are we. And it's really bizarre, because each time we came up with those different ideas, I thought that this was the one. And I often thought that I could almost hear the universe, the cogs of the universe, clicking into place, if you like, and going, yeah, this is what Nicci Fletcher and Andrew Fletcher were put on this world, on this earth to do. And it wasn't, So, we tweaked it, and eventually we found the one which really did. And this one really is the thing that is what we were supposed to do, because it makes sense of so much of what we've been through. And also, I'm talking here on a summit about We Are Worthy, about business analysis skills and tools and things like that. But, we couldn't have gone through the situation we had with the migration to the more secure website that happened and went wrong back in January. We couldn't have survived that if I hadn't had my business analyst skills, because I had to put those to good use to try and find a solution, because the company, our host, couldn't find a solution. So all of these things, all of the skills that you've got and picked up along the way, you might be able to use those, but you need to think creatively about how you can use them as well. And it could surprise you what you end up doing, which is brilliant, and it's exciting and things like that. So yeah, thank you very much. Somebody said the whole week has been fantastic in so many ways. Yes, it has been. I'm sorry if this has been a little tiny bit on the disjointed side. I was so focused on making sure that everybody else's live events and recorded events were a success, that I didn't spend as much time as I should have done preparing for this. And also, I am tired beyond belief at the moment, which is why I can hardly talk. So I do apologise for that. And yeah, somebody else has said it actually takes the pressure off making or coming up with your plan B, knowing that actually these things evolve, and it's quite normal for them to evolve as well. You know, if it doesn't quite work, tweak it, and if it still doesn't work, go and try something different. Anyway, what I will do is I have got some other training material which I will put up onto the website if people want to go through it. Just a few other little tiny bits and pieces which can help in a little bit more detail, because I really have just brushed the surface of this. They will probably be branded as something else. So they won't be branded as the summit. They will probably be branded as something else, because otherwise it will take me too long to go through things. But there are a few bits and pieces that I can add which can really help, particularly mind maps. I mean, I could have spent the whole session talking about mind maps, and they are so fabulous. So I'll definitely put that one up on. Right, and downloading the PowerPoint, I will, I think it is possible. So yes, although as Andrew said, I got him to spell check for me, and he came back and he said, but Nicci, your first 10 slides are just pictures. Yeah, actually there are no notes on them at all. So they may not be helpful, but yeah, the camel pictures, we all need photographs of camels. Anyway, it's been absolutely fantastic. I'm going to leave you now, sign off, because my voice is starting to go. Thank you so much for taking part. If you've got any other questions, you can PM me on Facebook, you can email me, the slide will come up later, but it's it's theteam@weareworthysummit.com, or you can leave comments on the website. It may take a little bit of time to get back to you, because we have just been inundated with things and we do need to sleep.